Hey guys, thanks for making it on Martin Luther King weekend. Hope you guys all had a good 3-day weekend. I had an okay one because of the Chiefs, but it's all right. But yeah, so Eric's sitting right next to me. We're gonna walk you through the second part of the intro. Can we put up the slides first? Or?
I'd say spend a minute going around.
You're good.
I would say spend a brief minute here going around and maybe just chatting about sort of the manuscript process a little bit. I think we talked about it briefly last time, but sort of this, again, just I'm going to say this pretty much every week for the next sort of like 5 weeks or so, is like, keep ratchet your expectations down of what you're going to get. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a link to a folder of some sample manuscripts that you can look at so you can go through. But the key thing that I will tell you, right, is that like these things have bullet points in them. They're not all finished. The goal is just to push as much content across as possible. This 25,000 word number is really that big target. Because again, like we're going to keep pushing towards getting a 30,000 plus word book for everyone. So that's the key. We're going to keep pushing on that one. So push another 5,000 words or whatever it is to get there. But remember, it's still not good. I mean, it won't be good. But the nice part about it is I'm the only one really reading it and giving feedback on it to make it great. And so, so maybe, I don't know, you want to go around and see how everyone's feeling about that process, and we'll go.
Yeah, we can do that. You guys all hear okay? I assume so. No one's said anything yet. But yeah, no, I'll just start, I guess. I've had a little bit of trouble. Like mine's been very broad, my topic, and I've been working on the last week, like refining that. I think I'll talk to you about it at some point, but I think I've been doing a better job of making it a little bit more like condensed, which I think will make my book better. But yeah, overall, like it is something I've been trying to keep more in mind as I write. Is like I want to write well, but like at the same time, I know that's more important to like get it done. So that's been something that's been a little bit of a learning curve, but overall it's been going well, pretty solid.
And one thing I'll just say on that note here a little bit too. There's this tendency, like this is just an observation that I've learned, is that people will ghost their developmental editor when they're feeling behind. Just don't do that. It's like you're not helping anyone at all. Like if you don't have something, just say like, hey, listen, I didn't get to much there this week. Like that's fine. Like no one's gonna be like, oh gosh, Sam, you were behind. Like what's wrong? That's not how this is, right? Like basically think of this as we're all on a marathon. We're all gonna finish. And so come hell or high water, we'll help one another get across the line. But like just don't stress yourself. Like the ghosting thing is not good. Right? And I know people do it. It's like just sort of like, oh, well, I'm behind, so I'll just like sort of just say like, yeah, guess I didn't get much done this week, but I'm going to catch up and stuff like that. That's perfectly fine. Remember, we're going to get there. This is hard. Like, I get it. So if you say like, hey, this is what I'm expecting this week, and I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, I was a little more aggressive than I thought I would be this week, and I didn't get everything done that I wanted. It was Peyton, actually. I don't know if Peyton's on, but I thought Peyton wrote a really good message, which was to say, yeah, I had ambitious plans of what I was going to accomplish. I didn't get it all done, but I'm going to keep trucking along. That's great. Like, just, don't feel like you're in trouble. There's no in trouble, right? We're all just sort of trying to finish this together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hear from me, Eric, D, we're not trying to stress you out. We just like really.
I'm only trying to stress Carson out. That's the only person I'm going to try and stress out here.
Does a good job. No, not messing around. But yeah, so we'll kind of go around, just talk about how you're feeling, like what's going on with your process. Once again, like you don't have to have a ton of progress. It's not like a race, but we'll start with Sierra.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, I have tape over my computer screen, so I can't do the video. I feel pretty good. Poem-wise, I'm like pretty much done. The next few weeks, like if I write and I feel inspired, then I'll add it, but I don't want to push it to where like the poems aren't getting good anymore. It's more now just like the intro I'm struggling with because it's different. Like I'm going to do an about this book and I only want it to be like a page or 2 pages. Mm-hmm. And I'm really like trying to name the playlist, find more songs, things like that, like the order I want to put the poems in. So now it's more like the strategy and format of things.
Cool. It's good. Yeah, I think, and in some ways, what you're doing right now with poems is similar to what everyone else is doing with structuring, right? So it's the same sort of thing. Like, there's some more addition and creating, but a lot of it is like, how do you make this come together into something for feedback on? That's great.
Awesome. Next we'll go to Katie. I know you just hopped on, but just want to give a little update about what's going on. Might not be paying attention. That's all right. We'll go to Julia next if you want to give a little update.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hey, Julia.
you can hear you.
Hi. So I agree with Carson how Doan Winkle always tells me it's better being done than being perfect. And I definitely agree with that. In the sense that I am a bit of a perfectionist when I write, and if it doesn't make complete sense right now, I kind of freak myself out. But I think this morning, I was working so hard on my chapter 1, and then I just finished it and submitted it, and I was like, I will come back to this. I just want to get the book as done as it can be. And then Sierra, I think that's her name, she said that as inspiration kind of pops up to add things. I think that's a really good idea, but that's currently where I am.
Good.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, take pride in the fact when you ship one off. It's an awesome moment to ship off a chapter for feedback, and then you're not going to touch it again. You're basically going to ship it off for feedback, and then you won't touch it again. But it's awesome to just ship them off and just don't worry about whether it's done or perfect, because you're going to have more shots at it. This is not your finished product. This is just like you said, progress. So that's great.
Yeah, great. Next we'll go to Sam.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Good to be on live. Haven't been to the sessions in a while, but everything I feel like is going pretty good. I feel like my manuscript has a lot more words than we've kind of been talking about in this session. So I've been trying to navigate what we've been talking about in the context of the amount of words I have. And also, I think I've been kind of structuring my book in parts rather than chapters.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of happy with it, and I'm so excited to get feedback, and so excited about the feedback I've been getting. So yeah, no, I'm really excited about what's been going on.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah, love the enthusiasm. Awesome. All right. Next we'll go to Allie.
Hi. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I think, I've mostly just been focusing on kind of trying to figure out which stories make the most sense in which chapters. So far I've mostly just been doing kind of some copying and pasting stories that I've already written. And so, yeah, I just need to spend some more time going back and kind of filling in the blanks, the bullet points there. But yeah, so far so good.
Good. That's great.
Awesome. Great. We'll go to Kelsey next.
Hi. I think I'm kind of at the point right now where I'm pretty overwhelmed for the first time in this process, and I missed a few sessions coming back to school, so I'm pretty behind, and I'm just trying to figure out how to catch up and at the right pace so that I don't get more overwhelmed. So I'm just kind of taking it day by day. Yeah. And one of those things where I was wanted to skip the session tonight because I was I'll go back and watch in order, but then I was no, I'll just get on and I'll make sure I don't get even more behind and try to so I was just I'll just get on, and I'm still keeping up, and then just go back and watch and do things in order. So I'm getting there.
Good. Yeah, that's the exact right attitude. Again, there's no way through but through, honestly. And so I don't think there's a head or behind either. It is just one of those things that for the most part, progress at this point, and this is for everyone, but specifically to Kelsey's point, is really just taking a chapter and getting it to a point where you're all right, it's done, but it's good enough, and I'm ready to kind of move on to the next one. So as you can sort of look at this and sort of keep checking off chapters along the way and ship it off to your developmental editor, that's the best way to think about it in this way. And there really is no through but through. And again, I think you may find yourself that you basically get one chapter out and you get a little bit of momentum behind it and you crank out a couple, or you may just it will just play the way it plays itself out. But there isn't really a set schedule of how you're going to pull this out. You're going to sort of set your own schedule over the next couple of weeks to get it across the line.
Yeah, I think I get that, especially because I guess I'm not that behind. Maybe I'm behind, but I just feel behind, which is why I'm having trouble with momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I think you're in a better place than you think you are. You'll be all right. We'll go back up to Katie, I think. if she's, yeah, there.
Yes, sorry about that.
No problem.
Yes, so I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat as Kelsey. I kind of fell behind just getting back to school, but I am getting back in the swing of things this week, and I just talked to Julia before this, and that made me feel a lot better. And I think, like, for me, though, the thing I'm struggling with is, like, there's still people I, like, want to talk to and, like, gaps in content that I want to get. So it's just, like, balancing all the different parts and stages and not, like, overbooking myself and trying to, like, talk to everyone still, because I need to just really buckle down and start writing.
Yeah.
More.
I'd say this one, too, just so you know, Katie. I think just so everyone knows, this first draft milestone is really designed to be just that. It's a milestone where we can really make sure to nail down the structure and kind of like both the overall structure of the book, the direction of the book, the intro, those pieces. But you'll still come out of it with more revisions to be made, right? Like, great books are rewritten, not written. So my advice to you is to sort of, like, if you think that you might want to interview someone, and, you know, to put a note in there where you think that this interview will go in the book, but in some ways to schedule the interviews for, like, after this first draft is through, because you have 2 months, basically 2.5 months of, like, revision time, which is plenty of time to incorporate more. So that's my 2 cents on that one, is, like, this should be, you know, try not to be worried too much about new stuff that you have to go out and do. If secondary interviews, certainly you can do, and stuff that you already, like, you've interviewed, you need to write, great. But I would try to, like, know that there's a second wave of, like, feedback that you'll get when you go out and get the stuff out there.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, there's somebody on the phone. I can't really tell. It doesn't say your name.
248.
Yeah, the last person hasn't talked yet.
Hi, it's Kate.
Oh, hey.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah, just peachy. So.
So I guess for me, the biggest struggle has been figuring out how to organize all the content that I have. And then this weekend, I kind of came up with an acronym that I think will really, like, help me structure everything. So I'm excited about that, to start organizing everything now.
Good.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah, it's exciting. All right.
Okay. Ferris in the house.
Yeah, we
here?
got Ferris in the house. What's up?
I'm in progress. I'm currently getting close to wrapping up a chapter, and then outside of that, it's just organizing, I guess, and just trying to figure out exactly what I'm trying to get through going forward. But yeah, so far, bit more optimistic than I was like a week ago.
Will just make you feel good, and you'll feel like you're making progress. So just try and cross them off. That's what the manuscript plan is really designed for, is just to give you something you can cross off and make progress on it. So again, if you feel like, I don't know where this book is going, whatever it is, just try and get one chapter out and then get the next one out and the next one out. And remember, like, my whole goal is to make sure that no one on this group embarrasses themselves. So, like, I will not let you put something out there that's not good. I will make sure of it. And I will, again, recommend you, if you need more time, you'll need, but most of you don't. It's like, as Carson sort of hinted at, you're all in kind of a better place than you mostly imagine, but you just recycle yourselves out. So I've read all this stuff. I see where these things are. I think you're going to get there. And so just remember, push for a chapter. Like, get that off your plate and be like, all right, like, chapter 2, it's done. This is great. And, like, don't even look at it again. Like, you shouldn't even look. I mean, you can go back through if you want before, like, if you get them all done. But for now, just push them out, move on, and remember, there's plenty more time to go back and make these things great.
So I think we'll start our little slide deck we have here.
Yep.
We had a couple troubles last time with, like, people not being able to see the slide. So, like, let me know pretty quickly. Oops. Just drag it over. Okay. Oh, geez. Okay. Can you guys see that okay?
I see your homework.
Oh, oops. Hold on. That's the wrong slide. Yeah. All right. I think the issue is the
share
screen.
screen. I'll share it. Go to share screen again.
Okay.
Unshare.
Okay.
Stop share.
Stop sharing, my bad.
Yep. And then go to share again at the bottom.
Yeah.
Share. Oh, yeah,
Sure.
share. And then just click on the slide deck or the intro to up left. There,
Okay.
right there.
Okay, cool.
Just click on that one, and that should do it for you.
Thanks for letting me know, guys. You don't want to see my stats homework. So, all right.
Does now that work? Can everyone see it now?
Yeah, is that good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go through these things fairly quickly just so everyone knows it. But the idea here is, like, we're going to go through the second parts of this process here, two of the other biggies right here. And so my recommendation for you is have open that introduction document you guys are working on and just put bullet points in to sort of carry yourself along. So as we said, when you submit your introduction, whether it's complete or finished, the best thing that you can do is have it broken into these 7 parts, basically having these pieces that make up introduction. And my goal is to help you make it from this kind of raw-ish content into something that's compelling and readable. And as many of you have seen the books that are out there already, like the introduction is one that like is just going to take some collaboration and work to do. So I'm going to help you, your DE is going to help you. We're going to make these things great. So these 7 parts, the story. Last week we talked about the current state and the problem. Today we're going to talk about sort of why you and this sort of theory a little bit today of what those pieces are, just to sort of go through it. But again, remember the idea, put some bullet points in and just sort of, again, as you have time, fill in these holes and blanks. The introduction will be different than any other chapter, which is why I sort of go through it with you guys in this way. It's all good. There you go. All right, so so we talked about before last time, like what's the current state? The current state is sort of this consensus of what's the broader thing going on in the world. So that's what that one sort of is that one. We did that one last week, but again, usually this has data and stats in this one. So as you're finding and reading and doing research, plug interesting data and stats under this bullet point. Again, that's kind of like just to think about what does the world look like that you want to talk about. So if it's Katie and it's talking about events, you want to basically, if you find stats on how big the event industry is or whatever that sort of thing is, like keep going through those pieces on that. The why are you writing this is kind of this concept of like taking us through why this matters to you and kind of what is the big thing going on. So, I'm going to go back to Katie. Katie's talking about events and this idea of like, everyone's doing them this way, but here's why I find this to be wrong. Like, and based on all this stuff I found out about it, I felt it was personally a challenge. And then as I kind of kept digging into it, I realized it was much bigger than that way. So that's kind of the way to connect this. Your own personal story, why this was compelling to you to write, but also why there's something wrong with sort of the status quo that's happening. So those are the 2 first ones we talked about. In some ways, this makes the case for your book. Like, what's the problem? And then why are you writing this book to make a different argument in this way? And again, Ferris is sort of in here. We were going back and forth in his structure. It's like, Ferris is writing about this intersection of refugees and refugee art. And what I told him to sort of think about is there a way for you to make a case that everyone's pouring all this money into thinking about how we support refugees? What if there's another way for you to support it by buying their art? And what does that mean? How would that work? And again, it's sort of a simple idea, but it means it's a powerful, different way. And then tell the story of why that mattered to him. Now, whether that's exactly the way he goes or not, it's just a way to think about it in sort of a different way. So now we're going to talk about 2 other ones tonight called about why you. Now, this is the one that most of you at various points along the way have had this question of like, how am I credible to even write this book? Like, why should anyone trust me? And so what I'm going to talk to you tonight about is how to wind up giving yourself the 2 concepts that'll convince people of why you. It's number 1, it's the concept of authority, why you're sort of an expert in this case. And number 2, this like concept of trust. And they're different, but they're both super important in this sort of way. I'm going to go to the next slide here. I'll give you a couple of examples of things. It's a little hard to read here, so I apologize for that one. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of the why you elements in this one. So this is from a book called Revolutionary Connectivity by Divine Mutomi. And one of the things she talks about in this concept of is she is describing her book, which is she makes this case for why internet access is the most important human right that we should be looking at. Right? That's something that she looks at. And so what is she? She's a 22-year-old. What authority does she have? And so she tells this personal story that makes us trust her a little bit of when she realized this thing was going on. The moment that like I realized that internet connectivity was the thing that differed me from someone else, it basically made her relatable to other people, right? This concept of like why we should trust her is because she realized the problem personally in her life. So that ability to like sort of us to say like, interesting, like you lived in Africa and saw this firsthand, that's what we relate to you. So the question on that one is how she answers that part. Earlier, she talks a little bit more about like her ability to become an expert. I interviewed all these sorts of people. That's how she proves her expertise. But the trust part of it is where she's authentic of what she saw in her case. That's the why, those 2 pieces. Go ahead. So this one is the very start of the book from a guy named Chris Giordano. And he is writing a book called The Introvert Survival Guide, how to survive college when you're an introvert. And so how does he basically make us trust him, right? He right away starts out saying, I'm an introvert, right? And he basically takes us through this concept, and it basically does both, like sort of the trust and the introvert, and then this sort of like, the kind of expertise. Well, number one, he says I'm an introvert, and then he does the thing that's sort of crazy, no introvert would do. They basically liked that right at the start. Right? So that's kind of the way that he connects to us. He connects to the reader to say like, all right, we should trust this guy because he's putting himself out there in this case. For the next one. So this one here is a book by Nico Cuevas about the intersection of virtual reality and education. And so he talks a lot about his own sort of struggles with learning. And when he was growing up, he really struggled with classroom learning. It was experiential learning that was really important to him. So he describes this particular personal story where he says, like, I would turn to the internet, to movies and these things to go deeper on topics. That's how he learned differently. So what has he done there? He's positioned himself to trust him in that sort of way. So that's really the core of these two pieces here. So what I want you to do in this next piece, if you want to go to the next slide, is we're going to try this out. Go ahead to the next slide. So actually go back here real quick. Go back to the very first one, which has one more right here. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to spend a minute, and I want you to go through and put some bullet points under the word authority. So there's two parts of this concept of YU. The first one is authority. So there's typically going to be a couple elements of authority. So as you're taking some moments here and writing, Carson, if you want to write, you can probably write on the screen there. The first thing is authority. Here's ways you can have expertise. Who are the types of people that you've interviewed? Some of the people, like, list those off. I interviewed 10 people in this case are interesting. These were the people, the companies they worked at. What are the ways that we prove your expertise? So again, some of the best ways to describe authority is who you interviewed, right? Those people, as well as what organizations and companies they are a part of. So I want you to list out, again, some of the key names that you think might matter. And importantly, like, these are people that I did. So, again, to pick on Carson, I interviewed people from 15 different startup companies. I was also able to interview one of the leading authorities on startups, Guy Kawasaki. Right? These are the people that, like, we should trust Carson, because it's not just about Carson, it's about people that he did. Katie, I interviewed Joe Gebbia from Airbnb. I also talked to people at these organizations. So the numbers of people that you interviewed and the specific types of people, who they are and their organizations are really important. A second way that you can have expertise in this way, and again, so write out some of those names and people right now. And then the second thing that you can do is start to write out the sort of, if you do have sort of any kinds of like traditional credentials. I studied, so, for example, Carson, I interned at a startup which taught me a lot. Or Ferris, I literally have been doing art since I was 10 years old. What are some of those things that you've done that give you experience in this space? So today I sat down with Will Lowry, who's one of the guys in your cohort. He was interviewing, I was doing his interview for his video promo. And he's writing a book on the intersection of entrepreneurship and meditation. And he told me this story a little bit about how, like, I didn't know anything about meditation, but I decided to go through like some of the stuff on Headspace and go through it all so I could sort of see some of those things along the way. So like, that gives us some idea that you're not just like you've done this personally in these sorts of ways. So take a couple minutes here and write some bullet points on those concepts of authority. Again, expertise is going to come from who you spoke with, those sorts of things, as well as any personal kind of credentialing that you have. Like, I've taken classes on this one, I've interned in these places, the things that you've actually done that are kind of like people would look to and say, oh yeah, like, I'm an artist, I'm a creator, I've done these sorts of things. So who you've interviewed, who you've talked to, what events you've attended, these sorts of things. Write some bullet points on all those sorts of pieces there. And then we'll secondarily talk about trust. Trust is a different one, but we'll talk about that one sort of. All right, so the second one is this concept of trust. So trust is a really interesting one. It's basically one of those things that allows you to put yourself out there in a way that makes you relatable, right? So for example, these are things that are going to make you a little bit sort of signal that you are sort of a fangirl or fanboy of this sort of space, something that relates you and connects you to it. So these will all be personal stories of showing why this is important. So for Divine Mutoni, she talks about her story about, again, like, I grew up seeing this firsthand. So what is a story or a set of things that makes you relatable to this case? And again, remember I talked to Will Lowry today. He was telling the story about meditation for him. He was describing how he was really unhappy at his co-op at IBM. And he sort of talks about, so like, sort of needed to find something that kind of was fulfilling. And so I started doing meditation, and I realized, like, suddenly my work got everything. So what makes you relatable and unique? What makes people realize, like, they're like you? So again, Julia talking about some of her own personal stories about her vulnerability, or, what are those things that connect in that sort of way? What is the stuff that connects you to your reader that they can empathize with you? They feel like you're the same. And usually that's going to require a little bit of sort of, being open, being authentic, being relatable. What is the way that they can sort of see you in it? And so don't be afraid to share your flaws, these sorts of things. When I was writing my introduction for this book, I talked about how, literally, like, I was going to quit teaching this class because I was like, it wasn't moving the needle for students. What's the way that's like unique to you, personal story that relates? Think about a couple of those things as you write some book. All right, so we can go ahead and go to the next one here. Again, remember, just the idea here of these sessions is to give you some bullet points. So when you go out to write this stuff, you've got these pieces in. So it may not be perfect yet, but it'll be sort of a set of things to take us along the way. All right, so that's the why you. And again, these are sort of things that we'll do. All right, so the next one that we're going to go into is sort of your theory, your unique things. And there's a couple pieces of this. We're going to go through it, and I'll go back through, and we'll fill these pieces out as we go. So, all right, so go ahead and, is that better? Okay, so this is basically we call this the preview a little bit. Like, inside this book, you're going to hear blank. You're going to see or discover what are the cool things that are going to happen in this book. You're also going to talk about kind of more specifically about what they're going to see in this book, what you're bringing to the table, and kind of make something that's a big claim here, right? So, like, I'm going to tell you again why, to Ferris, who's sitting right here, why I think you should invest in art actually want to make a difference in the refugee crisis. Something that's bold and crazy, right? So let me give you a couple examples of how these things sound. So here's, again, sort of the secrets of this bold claim that we're going to do in this piece. We'll come back to it a little bit, but you want to take the popular consensus that you laid out and share what it misses, and why is your book unique in this case. So again, I was talking to Will Lowry today about his book, and again, you're all sort of discovering this as you go, but he's writing a book about this intersection of kind of like entrepreneurship and meditation. And basically what his big claim is to say is that I believe that much of the failures that happen in startups are because the founders are not particularly present in the experience. And therefore, I believe that we could increase the chances of startup success by having more founders learn to meditate and be present. And that's a big, bold, ambitious claim. It's kind of crazy, but all of you have something like that. You just sort of have to like unpack that one. So let me give you some examples here in this list. So again, if we go back to Divine Mutoni, who wrote the book about guaranteeing internet access is the single most important human right, she basically makes this claim. It's sort of, I believe that guaranteeing universal, access to the internet is our best shot on making opportunity equally accessible and all backgrounds and resources. So again, through this whole claim, she sort of makes these pieces of it, and you can see as she goes down a little further, she'll show the case. I believe that there's, literally like $1 trillion that can happen if, in these places that there's increases in schooling and education. She makes all the case for it, but she starts with the bold claim, and then she sort of previews what we're going to see throughout the book a little bit. So there's this economic component of this piece that she's going to show. So she makes her bold theory, and she's got the case to preview what's coming. So here's, again, the kind of like what you see in Chris's. He's writing this book about being an introvert in college, and he lays out, sort of like his 5 places to thrive in college: normal life, study time, extracurricular, socializing, career planning. And he makes this sort of, point here is that like, it's totally winnable, right? That's sort of the argument that he makes. And he makes this claim a little bit earlier where introverts are more likely to drop out of college, like to leave college and go back home. And so making this point, like it's totally winnable, is the argument that he makes on that. All right, so the next one here is this, again, back to Nico Cuevas is here. He's basically what he wants to do is tell us why. He's like, I painted this story about the very technology that I believe is going to change the future. And he tells us like how he's going to do it. He's going to showcase us that like, I'm going to give you this like historical science fiction look at how he's planning to do it in education. So again, this is sort of how these pieces break the theory. So we're going to go back up and kind of like break down the pieces here one by one. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to break these pieces. Then the last part that we'll do is we'll actually break down the bold claim. We'll start here with the you'll hear. So go ahead and add another section of your document here, which is your theory. And so what I want you to wind up doing is I want you to wind up basically listing out sort of the 5 to 7 most interesting things that are in this book. You know, inside this book, you'll hear how, and again, to pick on Katie, how Joe Gebbia believes that the future of Airbnb lies with events as a complement to it, right? You'll hear how my interview with, you know, such and such changed the way I think about it. You'll hear the fact that the problem of, you know, internet access is 10 times bigger than I thought it was, you know, those sort of things. What are the core 5 to 7 insights that you think are just really interesting? If someone were telling you, what are the coolest things in this book? List out the coolest things that you'll have in this one. That's the wind, yeah. Again, oftentimes what they're going to be is you're going to use them as a tool to further establish your authority in the case. You know, you heard me say, you know, Katie saying, and as Joe Gebbia told me blank, right? Like in that kind of way. Or, you know, and that a UNICEF study says blank about the refugee crisis, right? What are those things that add sort of like, it's like the trailer of the movie. What are those core things? And again, you will most likely list these as bullet points. The next thing I want you to do underneath this one is sort of to write the word theory. So the second part of your theory is to sort of list that out. So what are the core principles of this theory? And oftentimes these are going to line up to the parts of your book or core elements of the chapter. There might be things that we talked about in your structure. But what are the core things that sort of set this entire book apart? Like you're going to, you know, in this book, we're going to look at the future, to pick on, again, Carson's case, the future of entrepreneurship as a career, right? And so in that, I'm going to look at how you start your career, how you accelerate your career, how you jump back into it. What are the kind of core ways that you're going to sort of like, the book is being structured a little bit to talk through the theory. Guide us through how the book is actually going to be laid out. So what are whether right now they're the parts of your book or whatever it is, how are you going to sort of take the reader through how you're going to unfold this theory a little bit? And again, think of this as bullet points of like how you're going to tell them where this journey is going to take them. All right, so the last one that we're going to do is we're going to go into this concept of the big claim you're making, the big idea, the big sort of claim that this whole thing will come into. What is the big idea? Now, this one will be hard for most people. Like it's sort of an unusual thing a little bit here. If you can go down to the next slide. Sorry. One more. There you go. Perfect. So here's what I want you to, this typically plays out in this way. So I want you to write the word bold claim, right? Because all of you need to have some kind of a bold claim of why this thing is worth reading. Right? So basically, I want you to sort of lay this out in this way. The secrets of it are, what is the popular consensus? And it goes something like this. Everyone believes blank. Here's what's missing from that claim. In this book, you'll see my approach, which is blank. And that's the sort of Mad Libs of this one. Everyone believes, or most people will think X. Here's why that's missing the point. In this book, my book is going to offer a view into that. So I'm going to take what we talked about when I talked with Will Lowry today, because again, I'm just fresh with him. His bold claim was, everyone believes startups fail because they run out of money, they do these things. But what they miss is the importance of the founder in all of that one. In fact, what research shows is that when we're doing something innovative, how present we are really matters. And in this book, I'm going to give you a unique look about how entrepreneurs, innovators, and change makers should be thinking about how to become present through meditation. Sort of see the logic tree that I walked through on that one. Every one of you has something like that. That's kind of the broad, bold claim that we're going to do now. take a minute here, sort of lay out the popular consensus, and typically everyone believes, or most everyone thinks, or here's what everyone sort of the common belief is. So like, Julia, everyone believes we need to be, curate our presence online and make sure we look a certain way, right? That's sort of, everyone believes that. Or in Kate's case, everyone believes that, sort of the way to health is blank, right? Whatever it is. But here's what's wrong. Here's what's missing. And again, some of those things are what you're going to be talking about in your book, and then why your book is offering this different view. What is that book, and why your book is offering? All right, so I'm going to sort of, I'm going to disappear at this point, but here's what I want you guys to do now, is I want you to sort of have everyone pair up and basically, or try up however you want to break the rooms up here, Carson, and have everyone talk through their bold claim with someone else. Because it's sort of a weird thing to think about, but I want you to sort of like work through this bold claim together. So Carson, if you want to break everyone up into sort of a group, so it's sort of like mini groups here to talk about it, spend about the next 15 minutes or so breaking this down, walking through these sorts of places and see what you can sort of do together in that kind of way. And then, yeah, it's great. So kind of work through each other's bold claims together and help one another. Because again, this is the core. And part of the reason we're doing this is I'm doing all these sessions with you guys to record your stuff. Will and I didn't get to do that one, so we had to sort of like architect his bold claim together. But I want all of you to have something that you're like, this book is going to basically showcase my belief on X. And the bold claim is going to be at the center of it. So spend just a minute talking about it. And if you have any questions after you sort of like churn through this a little bit, let me know, ping me with a quick message. I'll help you sort of unpack this one. But remember, you're just basically, the consensus is everyone believes blank. It's missing these things. So my book is doing this one. It's why your book is unique and different. Now, there might be other books out there, but for you, this is important because, there's never been a college student who's looked at it this way. No one's taken, research and looked at it this way. No one's sort of, what is the things that's sort of missing and why your place on the whole. Does that make sense to everyone? Anyone have any questions on this sort of concept of the bold claim and some of these two theories of your introductions here?
Anyone?
Cool. All right, I'll let you guys break out here and do your thing, and I'll see y'all next week. The next week we'll do the last parts of the introduction and check in, and then we'll be off to the races here as we continue on this race. So, and many of you I'm going to be seeing over the next couple of days here for for these interviews and stuff like that we're doing. They're fun to do. You're going to enjoy it, and I think hopefully create something awesome. But do focus on making sure you have some title, even if it's not the perfect title yet, and make sure that you have your bold claim, because that's one of the things that we'll talk about when we do our time together. Even if you don't think you have a bold claim, I promise you do. We'll make sure we get one for you. All right? All right, guys, have fun.
So I'll open all the rooms. We'll come back in around 10 minutes or so. We'll wrap it up. See you, Eric. How about we say 5:45, and then we'll wrap up then. So I'm gonna open the rooms now. So Ferris is here with me. I'm gonna come sit over here. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's right. I'm not 100% sure if I have a whole thing.
There's bold and there's what
Well, why would you do that?
because now
It's super bold.
yeah, it's already too bold, because what I'm saying, we're basically focusing on art reviews and stuff.
Right.
So the bold thing that I could be making with everything is usually all these big channels that want to solution for art might be, I feel like it's a very tough position to argue.
Yeah. It's also not kind of go through this process and through that. I see and also if you think it's just too much, you don't have to find it later. But yeah, if you just hold it back and never I'm just I really kind of go.
to remove anyone.
Well, I don't. Someone must have moved her. Oh, we moved to. Okay, and then yeah, but I don't know. I think it's like it's also like
Even some of the people I've interviewed, they be like, yeah, art is nice, but like priorities like food and shelter and stuff.
yeah, I know, but at the same time, like I mean, as long as you're not being offensive, like,
Yeah,
I think it's fine.
that's what's your mold?
So like when like I'm running an entrepreneurs in general. The last week or so, I've just had to get off from so I could like really soul search.
Right.
Like because I have so much like I could say, but it's like what is my goal to say?
Yeah.
And I think I'm getting there. I think that's gonna hopefully manifest in this big claim. But I think I can say like unequivocally the most important part of entrepreneurship is not getting like here and doing more like ambition, like not getting hard work to a certain degree. Because I think there's like a bunch of like everyone kind of thinks, I mean like being like involved in entrepreneurship, the people who actually are involved don't think this, but just the general public thinks that like in order to be successful in entrepreneurship, you kind of like strike gold, get the time like you're taking entrepreneurial idea that's perfect, has to make you billions of dollars and stuff. And then you're wasting your time. That's not really how it goes. In fact, it's like kind of like builds out. It's like the book, right? Like, it starts off really as nothing, and then like you change your ideas, change where you're going, but it gets there. So kind of like I like the idea of like the like analogy of like striking gold, but like in a different way. It's like I'm gonna try and work around that, but because that's like where I'm at mentally, but I got a lot of refining to do. I've done a lot of soul searching. I think I know where I'm going with it, but I feel like I could see like stories or chapters on paper before I could write a whole thing. But yeah. But no, I'm happy to see that you got the chapter about this guy.
Yeah, I just got finished like 2 stories out of that chapter.
So
So
that's like
once I do that, then I should be set.
I really am organized in chapters later.
There's really only one chapter I'm actually sure about because it's in the one common theme. Because like all of it's like I'm basically taking all the interviews I've had and like all the studies I've read about art therapy, turning it all into one thing and like, okay, this is a chapter on art therapy. Like that's it.
Yeah. Hold on a second. No, art therapy. That's like I don't know. I like your topic on quite a bit. It's like an interesting topic.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard to research.
Yeah,
It's so hard to find information on this stuff. And like now I'm trying to make contact. Like I was trying to look for stuff with Eric, not just art, like this stuff. There's literally no refugee art market. Like it does not exist.
Sorry.
So that's why I need to hopefully, if I carve one out, then yeah, sure. But like I just need to make sure that there's like something there for me to write about in that regard. So I'm trying to find studies, the auction house for art. But the one thing I found so far is that Christie's, they auctioned something from Iraq that was excavated from there because ISIS was destroying it. And then it was sold for millions. But a lot of people were mad about it because it was like, oh, that's like colonialism, all this stuff. And also my fear of like writing about why we should invest in like refugee art is because like I don't want to turn it into like a Wikipedia book where it's like, by you buying these refugees art pieces, you're changing their lives and like it's the only way and like it's your responsibility. Like it doesn't feel like it feels like there's more other ways I can go about it. But
no, that's another thing that's like
I'll figure
on
that
that like
out.
fair. And I'm happy you're like thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you'll get it. Like, if you're thinking about that, but we'll do it.
Yeah, I think
Just keep everything, even if you think it's bold, even if you think there's not a lot to back you. Like it's alright. And like just to be honest, like all of our books are probably not gonna like make you street ripples.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
it's more of like hopefully you can write this better.
Right.
So if it does make ripples, that'd be sick. So
Yeah,
make
it's
you look
true.
better all around. That's true. Yeah, but don't, I wouldn't get too stressed about that. But it's good. I'm gonna close me. Yeah, I need to get some of my chapters done. It's gonna be a big writing week for me. Okay, we got a minute to come back. Okay. My friend goes to Dartmouth and it says it feels like the weather thing, it feels like negative 26 outside. Fahrenheit. So like, yeah, it's probably like, that's what, like negative 30 Celsius? It's probably around there. Yeah. All right. Hey guys, sorry if I interrupted you or if you didn't have enough time, but I think I'm gonna wrap up the meeting now. This was a really great session. Thanks for coming. Thanks for making it on Martin Luther King. Yeah, make sure you come to the last introduction session next week. Wrap up then. But yeah, hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Let me know if you guys need anything. You know where I'm at. So yeah, see you guys.